The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
The apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." The Lord replied, "If you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you would say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you. Who among you would say to your servant who has just come in from plowing or tending the sheep in the field, 'Come here immediately and take your place at table'? Would he not rather say to him, 'Prepare something for me to eat. Put on your apron and wait on me while I eat and drink. You may eat and drink when I am finished'? Is he grateful to that servant because he did what was commanded? So should it be with you. When you have done all you have been commanded, say, 'We are unprofitable servants. We have done what we were obliged to do.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Good morning. I think we all can agree that it is natural for us to want to be thanked for the good that we do. We all want to be appreciated, and none of us wants to be overlooked or taken for granted. After all, this is about our reputation. We all would like to be highly regarded. However, Jesus is calling us to something different. That it doesn't mean what people think of us or have high regard for our actions. In today's gospel, he says, "When you have done all you have been commanded, say, 'We are unprofitable servants. We have done what we are obliged to do.'" In the Sermon on the Mount, he tells us, "When you give to someone in need, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." And in another place in St. Luke's Gospel, he says, "When you host a dinner or a banquet, do not invite your friends or brothers or relatives or rich neighbors. Otherwise, they may invite you in return, and you will be repaid. But when you host a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed. Since they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." So why does Jesus insist that we give without counting the cost and seek no reward for our works? It is because he wants our love to be pure. He wants us to give out of simple love for him and for those in need. And he wants us to know the joy that comes with our generosity might go unnoticed, but others benefit from our good works, sometimes without them even knowing about it. And finally, Jesus knows that human gratitude and appreciation are short-lived and unsatisfying. He wants us to receive something much greater, the gratitude that comes from God, and that is rewarded with everlasting life. And there is another trap that Jesus wants us to avoid. Often, we get into the mindset of thinking we deserve special favors from God because of the good we have done. Because we believe ourselves to be generous and kind people, we might think that our prayers might be answered the way that we would like. However, this attitude is far from what Jesus calls us to in the gospel. He does not call us to an easy and comfortable life. Rather, he tells us to take up our cross with him and follow him. And he promises us that others will ridicule and persecute us if we do. Keeping God's commandments does not always mean we will be rewarded in this life. In fact, doing good can sometimes get us into trouble and be ridiculed. Take St. Paul, for example. No one has done more to spread the gospel message. Because of his work, thousands came to believe in Jesus. However, it wasn't easy. Many times he was beaten by the crowds he spoke to. 4 times he was shipwrecked. He spent many years in prison and was finally beheaded for his witness to Jesus. Yet he persevered, keeping in mind the reward that God promises to those who are faithful to him. It is for this reason that in today's second reading, he can say to Timothy from his prison cell, "Bear your share of hardship for the gospel with the strength that comes from God." And in our first reading, the prophet Habakkuk knew that feeling as he saw his countrymen being carried off to Babylon. And he gave full vent to his anguish. He said, "I cry out to you, Lord, but you do not listen. I cry for help, but you do not intervene." But the Lord was listening. And he answered, "The vision has its time and will not disappoint. If it delays, wait for it." Patience is a virtue.